We're going to welcome back to the program Debbie Carlson. She's a contributor to Barrons as well as the Wall Street Journal. Debbie, always great to see you. Thanks for joining us again this morning.
Thanks for having me.
I was kind of talking to you in the virtual green room about we had Michelle Holleran, who's an expert, a consultant to the senior living community. You actually took a deep dive into the retirement, the care communities, and how to select one. As we take a step back, let me ask you, what are these, how would you describe these communities, these care communities?
Yeah, so the official name is Continuing Care Retirement Communities. Sometimes they're called Life Plan, but like the official name is CCRC. And these have residences ranging from independent living to memory care, all in one location. That also includes assisted living and it can include skilled nursing. They've become very popular because, they're really nice amenities. I went to one in Chicago for the Barron's article called The Admiral on the Lake. And you walk into this place, it looks like a regular upscale condo. It has, tons of activities, restaurants. This one has a beautiful roof deck. And it's been around for over 100 years because it is a nonprofit and it started as a way to take care of the elderly. And that's where many of these are built from. But this is a supply constrained industry because building new facilities is a lengthy process.
Yeah.
A lot of people are worried about, long-term care. How are they going to take care of themselves in old age? And so this is why they've become popular.
So they're very popular. I can understand it. We have a lot of people that are turning age 65. I think I read somewhere like 10,000 a day. I don't know if that's the right number,
Yeah,
but
it
I keep
sounds
on,
about right.
in my head, that's what I think. It's like peak 65, I think is what there's like a ad campaign around it. In any event, so I could see the attractiveness of this. And look, I'm kind of approaching that age. I'm not there yet, maybe in another decade or so. But as these things pop up, I mean, what's the process that someone should use
Mhm.
to make a selection? Because you went to one in Chicago. I have to think that there are other competitors in that
Mhm.
area and they're popping up all over the United States. So how do you pick one?
Yeah, many of these are nonprofits, and that makes it harder to kind of look at the financials. So you'll get, some marketing material on the entrance fees. You'll get marketing material on the monthly fees, which will include housing and amenities. Some entrance fees may be refundable, but this is a business model that often blends real estate, healthcare, insurance. So it is really tough to kind of puzzle out all of those. So one of the things you want to start looking at, especially with a nonprofit, is your state's Department of Insurance or the Public Health Department will regulate these facilities, and only 41 states actually have oversight. So if there is oversight, the CCRC has to file disclosures with the state. You can go to the state and ask for that disclosure information. Nonprofits also have to fill out forms to the IRS. You can get that information. And then you can start looking at what they have filed to the state. You can look for information such as days cash on hand, which will give you a sense of how much money the CCRC has on hand to pay bills if no money's coming in. And you want to look for something that's about 200 days or so. You want to look at occupancy rates because the CCRC's revenues come from the entrance fees. They get that flush of cash right away. And the
Mhm.
monthly fees of people in independent living because that's where they kind of make the money from. Because obviously, if you're in memory care, that's going to be a lot more money. And depending on the type of CCRC you're in, you may not be paying market rate for that. So occupancy rates across the board, but especially those who are in independent living.
Did,
And then you want to look at something called the debt to service coverage ratio. These often have a heavy amount of debt from construction and building operations. So those are like some really kind of key metrics to zero in on.
let me, did it strike you as odd? You made the comment that only 41 states have a regulatory entity that oversees these. Does that strike
Mhm.
you as odd that nine, I don't know who the nine are, but it just
Yeah.
struck me as odd that as we're reaching this influx of people, and you often, I do a curation of the news every morning. I often read about, not often, but I see where, nursing homes have faced lawsuits, et cetera. I'm calling them nursing
Mhm.
homes, but facilities like this have faced, had abuse and things and faced all sorts of legal challenges. So did it strike you as odd that nine of the states don't have a regulatory entity?
Yeah, well, what really struck me as odd is there's no federal oversight.
Yeah.
And so it is up to the states. So yeah, to your point, what's with these other nine other states? And to that point is, the reason why you want to look at these financials are, as nonprofits, so many of them have foundations because, they may have this agreement to care, but they can go bankrupt.
Hmm.
And, there's no guarantee that they're going to be bailed out. And often what happens is if they do go bankrupt, a for-profit entity can come in and take it over. So, this is why when you're going to, look at one of these, you really want to suss out the financials as much as possible because the entrance fees, as I mentioned in this story, start with, easily over $100,000 and maybe up to $1 million.
That's a
It's a
lot of
lot of
money.
money. It's a lot of money.
So is this really for more, sorry to interrupt you, is it more for affluent people? I mean, I
I
always
would
worry about
say.
people like me, like the regular people. How am I
Mhm.
going to afford $1 million to buy into something like that?
Yeah. Well, for instance, this Admiral on the Lake, the entrance fee for some of the smaller apartments is about 400,000.
Hmm.
So, and this is in downtown Chicago, a desirable neighborhood, and
Yeah.
that's, that's, not terrible because, but a lot of people do sell their homes to move in to one of these. So, but yes, these are for affluent people. And that is one of the risks that you have to think about because, recession, stock market declines, that can limit how many people enter, since that may affect people's ability to pay for some of these upscale communities.
Let me ask you about, it's not uncommon for hospitals, doctors, businesses to have Google reviews or reviews on
Mhm.
Yelp. Do they have a similar process? So if you don't have if the nine states don't have a regulator and there's no federal oversight, is there a place that you can kind of suss out, to use your term, the what people are
Mhm.
actually experiencing?
Yes, there are. I mean, I imagine there's probably Google reviews. I didn't specifically look at that, but there are. I mentioned in my story. There's a couple of places that people can look at. There's some website called the National Continuing Care Residents Association, and this is imagine like your condo board. This is how I would
Mhm.
equate it to. Is there are residents who are actively involved with the building that they live in to make sure things are kind of on the up and up. So you could look at that. There's also some financial tools from a place like My Life Site, which can help people understand what to look at. And of course, you want to speak to maybe your financial advisor, your accountant who has experience in some of these.
It's interesting. You talked about some of the amenities, and look, I think it's beautiful. You want to live in a beautiful place. You want to live in
Mhm.
a place that's safe.
Yeah.
Maybe I think when I talked to Michelle Holleran of Barron Consultant, she mentioned that they have like life learning,
Mhm.
places where you can go and actually learn different skills and
Yeah.
knit and things like that. I wonder at what cost are those things relative to, are they a value add or are they really a necessity? Because people buying into something like that, it sounds nice, but I have a sunroof in my car. I bought it.
Mhm.
Very rarely use it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of
Bad
these,
analogy.
yeah, that's quite all right. In other stories I've done for Barron's on these senior livings, part of these facilities is this kind of focus on wellness so they'll have a lot of exercise, or they'll have, people on staff to kind of help with, beyond just like, medical, but like I said, wellness. And, it's for you to kind of go to them and look around and see what the facilities are. Are you a swimmer? Do they have a pool? You know what? Yeah, maybe you don't care about that. But a lot of these will have exercises, or exercise rooms or art rooms. So you do have to think about, is this something I'm going to use or not? And there's a culture too with, talking to the residents, because now that I've visited a few of these first stories for Barrons that I've done, there's definitely a vibe, I will say, to these. So that's something you want to look at and see, is this really right for me?
Yeah, I would imagine that, some have a religious affiliation. I
Oh
would
yeah,
imagine that there,
absolutely.
churches and
Mhm.
synagogues and mosques that support these types of things.
Mhm.
It's like going to a school
Yep.
or picking a college, right? You want to
Yep.
pick one that, I don't do well in big schools, so I went to a smaller
Yeah.
university. People may want that big, maybe more social butterfly. So you probably have to kind of figure out really what works for you. Do you get the sense from in your
Mhm.
research that, as we started out the conversation, more and more people turning 65, we're going to need more of these facilities, that the builds are going to be quicker, faster, and more plentiful around the country?
Mm. Well, it doesn't seem to be, because as I was looking in the story that I was writing, the National Investment Center for Senior Housing and Care only expect a 4% growth rate this year. And the Admiral on the Lake, this particular place, recently broke, I would say really not recently, but maybe about 10 years ago, added quite a bit more to their facilities. So, you have to think about it. It's building any sort of like large condo building, but with the addition that these are for seniors. So you need to have, areas for skilled nursing. You have to have areas for memory care. So it just takes a longer time for these to get built, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right, but we're no doubt about it. We're we're going to need more for people like me as I get
Yeah.
older, and hopefully they allow cats, as we, both of us are cat
Yes.
lovers. So hopefully they
Yes.
allow cats to live with their owners. Debbie, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us, and
Thank
we
you.
look forward to having you back on the program again very soon. Great to see you.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
Well, thanks for watching, and don't forget we're back again tomorrow morning